Welcome to Season 3 of Raise the Anchor with your host, Melissa Burbridge. This season, we are going to inspire, ignite, and create space for you to go after the change you want with invigorating interviews and some deep diving into my personal story. We hope you enjoy. All right. Welcome to another episode of Raise the Anchor. We have an exciting guest today, Natasha Tucker. She is going to tell us how she went from the store manager at Starbucks to executive director at Plastic Oceans Canada. I had the pleasure of meeting Natasha in between both jobs when she was actually creating her own business. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So happy to have you. And it's such an interesting case of going from Starbucks to Plastic Oceans. And I'm really curious to get into those details today. So what was the pivotal moment that made you realize you didn't want to work at Starbucks anymore?
Oh, well, I mean, I wouldn't say there's necessarily one moment. There were many moments that were leading up to the change that I knew needed to happen. And I mean, I think I knew it when I took the job, if I'm being honest. I took that job when I moved here from Vancouver, and I'm from here originally, but had a really fantastic job that was so much more in alignment with me in Vancouver. But moving here, taking the job with Starbucks was an opportunity I felt to make a change from the inside with a company that I respected at the time. And then through my experience there, while I had a lot of fun and met a lot of fantastic people, it was something you knew, the more you got into something that you're like, this isn't right. Something doesn't align. But what really broke it for me was COVID, if I'm being honest. Yeah. Being one of those essential workers, but not an essential worker through the public eye, while still having to be there for people. And seeing all the changes and whatnot that comes with being a manager and having to deal with that kind of stuff. And ultimately, having my store close because of the pandemic was really a kick out the door that I needed and the push that I needed that I was too afraid to make myself.
Yeah. And you bring a big change every day in your current job that is actually going to help the world if people pay attention, which they really should. Yes. But you caught my eye in your own little business that you were doing in between both jobs. What was that little business that you had? Yeah,
so it was a passion project of mine, and I recognized this through working at Starbucks. So again, while it wasn't my be all end all in that career, it was still very much leading me to where I am today, in the sense that I recognize that there is a huge problem that we as society have with plastic waste. And, it can seem trivial to some when you're first being introduced to the topic. I know there's the straw is the butt of the joke now, where it's like, oh, not the sea turtles. I don't want to hurt the sea turtles, so I won't take a straw. But it's so much bigger than that. And, through working at Starbucks, I realized how much waste there is just from one little store, and amplified or multiply that by, all the other stores out there. It's a massive impact. So through leaving Starbucks, I did start to focus on how can I have a difference and help people, because it can be a very polarizing topic. And I love working with people. My whole career has been working with people, but inspiring them to make a change that feels right for them, and not chastising them for, using a straw or whatever it may be, but helping people make decisions that feel good for them. So I created this very early stage business called Green for the Blue. And while it's very much still a passion project of mine, in starting this, it ultimately led me to my current position with Plastic Oceans Canada, where I pretty much get to do what I set out to do in my own business, but on a massive global scale, because our organization is across the world. So really cool how that transition happened, and really excited that it all flowed together so nicely.
And there's been like a massive mindset shift from when I first met you, of how can I make a difference? how can I do this? How can I do this, to literally running the world? Because as you watch, you are so powerful now, not in a bad way, in a good front, leading a change, which is so beautiful to watch. That whole motion is so beautiful to watch. And I absolutely fell in love with your value the first time we met on bringing your own cup to your coffee shop. And
I'm not
I know that
annoying
seems
person.
small. That seems small, but so many coffee shops don't do that personalized cup anymore where they're going to wash it later. It's disposable. It's always disposable. And it's such a waste. I actually miss going to coffee shops.
Yeah. Well, and this is ultimately my stance that I took during COVID times was I will not go to a coffee shop that will not give me a reusable cup or put my drink in my cup. And while I understand that with COVID times, it can be a lot more difficult to accept these items, especially for larger organizations. But if there's anyone who can speak to that in this particular movement, I would argue that it is me, because having worked at Starbucks, through the pandemic, there's no reason why these corporations and these large companies, or even your local coffee shop, can't. And, I don't want to go too in depth on COVID, but it's been disproven multiple times over and over and over again that COVID doesn't come, or you can't contract COVID through transmission of touched items. So I would argue that for these organizations, for example, Tim Hortons, McDonald's, all these really, really big companies that used to take cups, they're claiming that it's because of COVID, when ultimately it's no different than accepting cash.
No.
You take the cup, wash your hands, just like you would with cash. How we're more cautious about that. So that is something I wouldn't go anywhere without bringing my own cup. And if they wouldn't take my cup, I wouldn't go. And that's something I usually stick pretty closely to. I let it slide a little bit in COVID because there's only so much you can do. You need your coffee sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Ultimately recognizing the impacts, I was like, you know what, to me, it's not worth it. The one coffee cup that I'm enjoying for 5 minutes, but spending close to a lifetime in landfill because it is lined with plastic. As much as you want to think it's paper, it's not. It spends a lifetime in landfill. So is it really worth it?
Yeah. And there's a lot to go behind plastic as well, because we've learned that plastic isn't always manufactured properly. I remember as a young mom with 2 babies, and I'm feeding them bottles all the time. And yes, those bottles were plastic. We did have some glass ones, but there was a lot of plastic because they were toddlers. They were bashing that thing around.
Yeah.
And then I learned that I shouldn't heat that plastic up. I shouldn't have anything warm in that plastic. Well, you tell a baby not to have warm milk,
yeah, good luck.
Good luck. So that's scary to learn that things that are being sold to you for use for the purpose of heating up are actually not safe for you.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And, I have such a strong respect for marketing because, of course, it's necessary in the world that we live in and everything. But, it can be very dangerous, whether it's, for your health and safety, or even I recall one of the very first things I did to try and bring attention to my Green for the Blue business was doing a webinar on greenwashing, because that's something that has been so defeating, but so consistent through, this environmental space, where you see companies that are trying to show that they're doing good or they're safe, in your case with the bottles. And it's just not true. And it can be really disheartening for the people who are trying to do the right thing and trying to make the right decisions, but not being able to decode it properly.
Yeah.
So that's something that I truly believe in as well, and hope to inspire change with is, truth in labeling, or, if you can't put truth in labeling, don't label it, and let there be some kind of other resource that we can look at aside from a recycling symbol that makes people think that it can be universally recycled, for just as an example.
Yeah. One of the other big missions you often do, which I love, and I wish I had the courage to go into the ocean and do it, is you clean up the oceans.
Yeah. It's so much. Yeah, we do. I mean, through Plastic Oceans Canada, we focus on some cleanups. However, what really got me into this space, as part of my ethos, is cleaning up, and that's really how I got into, environmentalism. It's, feeling as though someone who's trained in business and is so passionate about the oceans, but knowing that I'm not a marine biologist. I can't work in this space. Who am I? Right? So what can I do? Well, I can every day on my lunch break go to a beach and clean up that same beach every single day and walk away with a bag full of garbage every day. That's what I would do on my lunch breaks in Vancouver. And that to me was my impact, because I can't work in this space and make a change because I'm not educated or qualified. So I'll do what I can. And then that ultimately inspired me here in Halifax to be doing things like that. And, I one thing that I was interested in and wanted to bring to Halifax was, there's an organization called Dive Against Debris, but where people scuba dive and clean up the ocean from diving. And I thought, what a cool opportunity. So
Yeah.
Through my volunteer experience with Back to the Sea Society, a local organization, we organized some underwater cleanups, and it was so much fun. It was a little sketchy. I definitely got entangled in some fishing line, which was an interesting feeling as a human with a bunch of gear on. Realize how clumsy you can really be. But yeah, it's fascinating the things that you find. And one of my favorite things about it, seeing people become connected and realizing the issue, because I call it like the gateway to environmentalism. When you do cleanups and you realize how abundant and how long lasting these materials are on our coast, or how recurrent the issue is when you go back to the same spot every day and see what's washing up every day. It really just makes people think.
Yeah, that's very powerful that you would go to the same beach and you could get a bag every day. Because when we go to the beaches, we see this big, beautiful place. We don't really take time to look at every little inch of what's there. So the fact that you could find a whole bag of stuff every day is just like makes me want to shake my head. Like, why? I don't understand littering. I would rather litter my whole car full of garbage than chuck it out the window. And I know that sounds bad, but I would rather contain where that garbage is as opposed to spilling it off. We have a bad situation in our little town that we have going onto the highway. The two highway exits and enters, they're always littered. Yeah. It's like everybody is like, okay, I'm close to home. I don't want people to know that I went out for fast food. So I'm going to chuck it out the window. Yeah. And every year there's the massive cleanup to get rid of that. And it astonishes everybody how much they get every year, but there's never any change. There's never any like, okay, every year we get 10 or 12 huge, massive garbage bags.
From one small area.
One small area.
The one that gets me, it's the exit to, I used to live in this area, but it's it's going towards the bridge from Dartmouth, the Woodlawn exit.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that one has always been absolutely awful. And I hate going down that exit because there's nowhere you can pull over and pick stuff up. And it's just the worst. And you just wonder, like, who is doing this? Like, haven't we gotten past this point as a society? And like, don't we all know that littering's wrong? Like, are we this barbaric that we can't just put our garbage in a garbage can or hang on to it in the car until we get to the gas station and put it in that garbage if you are trying to hide your fast food addiction? Like, aren't there other options?
Or take your fast food garbage from the last fast food time the next time you go to your fast food.
Totally.
Like just right.
There's so many options and they're so simple. But you know what my biggest pet peeve for littering is? Like, it's all really, really dumb, but cigarettes. That to me has become so pervasive. With Plastic Oceans Canada, we launched a program. So if I have any teachers listening, hit me up if you're interested. But this is a really cool program called the Circular Economy Ambassador Program. So the idea is, Plastic Oceans gives teachers whatever they possibly need to run this program. It's all free. And we run it through September and October. 2021 was our first year for it. We had, 10 schools that did the pilot phase, super successful. But what these kids did with their teachers, they learned about plastic pollution. They then went out into their communities, did cleanups. But aside from just doing cleanups, they actually sorted what they found. They tracked it and they submitted all of their data to us. And we compiled all of that data for a variety of reasons. And again, with the students, the focus is then to use resources provided and divert, not just take a garbage bag full of stuff and chuck it away, because unfortunately it often ends up back in the environment. So what can they do with what they found to either repurpose it or basically get it back into the economy somehow? So what we did, coming back to the data, is we compile all of the data that the students provided us, as well as some of our partnering organizations. But what we found from these students is that the most abundant item, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, but now it's proven from our side, cigarette butts. So many cigarette butts. And also knowing that over half of the items and the materials that they found were made of plastic, over half. So knowing that, cigarette butts contain plastic in the filters. So when you're smoking a cigarette, I mean, we all know cigarettes aren't good for us. So at this point, if you're doing it, it's a vice and that's your thing. But there are ways to responsibly dispose of them because, the thing that a lot of people don't realize is, people think that plastic will break down inevitably and, go into our environment and whatever it may be. However, every piece of plastic, it doesn't actually biodegrade. It just keeps breaking up into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller microscopic pieces. So it's at the point where every piece of plastic that has ever been made is still around in the environment somewhere. Maybe not visible to the eye, but it's still there. And it's causing massive problems. And, that perhaps is another discussion. But nonetheless, it's just when it comes to cigarette butts and how abundant they are, it never surprises me, but it also does that people are still walking down the street and flicking their butt out the window or, whatever it may be. And it's very confusing.
I've never gotten that. Like, maybe it's because I'm not a smoker, but I've never gotten that why you need to throw it on the ground.
It's so interesting too, because through my building of Green for the Blue and just trying to do a bit of research. And again, I always try and ask these questions with an open mind because like you said, I'm not a smoker. I don't know the circumstances. So I genuinely want to know what it is that makes you think, if I were to ask a smoker, if you had your Timmy's cup, would you throw it out the window when you were done with it? So many people would be like, no, I don't litter. That's awful. But then, well, what do you do with your cigarette? Mm-hmm. And they're like, throw it out. I'm like, well, how is that any different? And I put this call out on my Instagram saying, smokers, no judgment here, just curious. If you don't litter, if you don't consider yourself someone who litters, why would you throw your cigarette butt out the window? I got no responses. Like, I think I got one person saying, I never thought about that before. And I'm like, well, here you go.
They probably can't answer. Yeah. They probably can't answer why. It's just habitually like either they're embarrassed to share that they smoke with their family or they just don't get the impact that it could actually have. But I will bring us back on to your inspiring change because I could talk about this all day because it's something I'm also passionate about. I like clean living. So it's part of recycling, part of making sure that you're not making that impact. And the ocean is a place that grounds me. So anything that harms it, I'm going to
come after it.
So you went from a low-level store to this big executive role. Like, did you have education behind that? Or I just want to allude to how Jen helped you and your transferable skills of being the manager at a store going into this big role that a lot of people would probably love to be into. So share your story.
Well, for me, like I said, I have a background in business. That's what I went to school for. I've been in retail for almost my entire career, but really recognizing that I'm good at retail. I know that about myself. So that's where, you always stick with what you're good at, right? Why would you leave in something that you're good at,
It's your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. It's your comfort zone. So I think through coming here to Halifax and, taking this job with Starbucks, I've always felt as though this is a bit vulnerable, but this is I've always felt as though I've been a big fish in a small pond. So I excel because of my circumstances, because of things that are outside of my control, and just, I just do well because of maybe I don't know. It's a bit of imposter syndrome. I can't really talk through it that coherently, but nonetheless, it's always kind of been very prevalent for me. So in moving to Halifax and basically demanding the store manager job, I had been asked to come on as an assistant manager. And I said, I've had enough as an assistant manager and supervisor. I want to be the manager. This is my time to be a manager. Always bridesmaid, never a bride. Well, now I'm going to be a bride.
Yeah.
Also true. So this experience, it gave me a bit of confidence that I didn't feel I had, because while, I was excelling in it when I wanted to. But I also had the part of me where I was like, I don't want to do this. So why am I going to break my back to do this? But what change needs to happen? Because this isn't my be all end all. I came back to retail. I knew I shouldn't have. Something needs to happen. So that insert Jen. So Jen Warrington, I fully believe in signs, and when you need a change so bad and something comes up and smacks you in the face. Like I remember having the worst day. I had some very difficult employees that I worked with and was having a significant impact on my mental health, trying to manage their mental health, and just ready to throw in the towel. But you don't want to just throw in the towel blindly, right? Without a backup plan. But then Jen's ad, I think, came up on Halagonia or something. It was like something about like her very first one. I think it was when she just got started, like considering a career change. And I was like, yep. And I sent her a message right away. I think within a week, I was like, yep, we're working together. I love your energy. I love how she, wasn't afraid to like put me on the spot and be like, well, why do you have that thought? Like having, another strong personality call me out, which was really helpful. And then through her work, she really helped me figure out my direction. And, she probably was so annoyed with me at the beginning because I was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And she's like, you need to focus. And once she helped me focus, it was really clear and really exciting. But then even having her to bounce ideas off of, and even ultimately being like, well, I was wanting to start my business, but this opportunity came up and I can't say no, right? But am I selling out by not proceeding, like going through with my own business? So she was really pivotal. And to this day, I still message her and, be like, Jen, I need help with this. And she's just, I can't, even verbalize how impactful having someone help walk me through. So a career coach, someone to talk to when you're wanting to make those changes, to help validate the work that you're doing. It's so critical.
Yeah. And she definitely broke you out of your shell, because I remember sitting in a coffee shop
Yeah.
one day, and this lovely lady asked me who I was.
Yeah. As I'm sitting there working and I'm like, I know her. I kind of know her.
Yeah. So it definitely opened up, and us meeting, we love to travel. I know the first day we were supposed to talk about social media and digital media, and we talked about travel the whole 3 hours.
Yeah.
There was no social media
talk. 1
hour
meeting on social media turned into a 3-hour travel discussion. That's on brand for both of us, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. As our listeners have heard the previous episode, I love to talk about travel. It's travel and more travel. Before we lead into the next couple of questions, do you have any big travel plans over the next couple of years?
Yes, of course I do. Pending COVID, who knows? I'm staying resilient. However, I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone again. Common theme. I am going to the Bahamas in 11 days. So I am going to live on a diving boat. I'm doing a live aboard dive trip. They call it a hostel on the water. So it will be, there's a great group from here, the Torpedo Rays Dive Shop. There's a bunch of us going. So it'll be, I think, a boat with 26 people, a very small boat. So close quarters, lots of diving. And then I intend on going down a few days before and staying a few days after, because never have I ever had a remote job before. So I'm going to really try and capitalize on the ability to work from a sunny, sandy location versus looking out my window and seeing snow and freezing rain.
Rain. I call this the winter of rain in Nova Scotia, because
seriously. And the Friday snowstorms, like, come on, they've got to stop.
I know my son would love for the Friday snowstorms to stop because they impede his soccer.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that. You can't do anything on the weekend.
Well,
I was going to say, that's my next travel trip. Otherwise, I have a honeymoon coming up. So I think we're trying to go somewhere crazy, somewhere we'd never, ever think of going. So we don't know where yet, but it's in the works.
Ooh, excited to watch that. Is your fiance going on your trip to the Bahamas?
Nope, I'm leaving him behind. He's not a diver, unfortunately. And while he very much regrets his decision to not get dive certified, as I was suggesting when I first booked this trip, he unfortunately is not coming. So he gets to stay home with the dog.
Aww, the cute pup.
Yeah.
So who motivates you to keep going? Because you have made a huge change in your life. Like, running a business or being the executor in charge of a whole team is a lot different.
Totally.
Than running a coffee shop.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's wildly different. And you know what, there's a few people who keep me motivated, but I would say the first person, and I thank my lucky stars, and without getting overly mushy, my partner has been the most supportive person ever. When in the days of me being, unhappy with my career with Starbucks, just knowing that it's not who I am. And I'm the kind of person that when something isn't right, it's not aligned, it affects everything that I do. And nothing is going to be okay until I make that change. And sometimes, there's a bit of a mental battle with that. But he was always very consistent in saying, if you need to leave, you need to leave. Don't wait for a backup plan. Just go. And me being stubborn was like, no, I need to contribute. I'm not going to be relying on my man. I need to contribute to the household too. I'm an independent woman. But while I appreciate the sentiment on his side, of course, he's doing it for me and saying, we can get through this. It's going to be okay. You'll find something. But again, that bit of imposter syndrome and all those mental games that I think are more prevalent in a woman's mind than perhaps others. He's been my biggest support and motivator. And then otherwise, I have a lot of great people in my network. Yourself, Jen, there's a lot of people who just really inspire me to keep pushing, to be better and to go towards the things that I want to do. And then ultimately my incredible team that I've built. I love them so much. It's a team that I've had the pleasure of building from the ground up. When I joined Plastic Oceans, I was their first ever employee. Prior to that, they've only had contractors, and they decided to make me their first employee, which was very humbling. And then having the opportunity to connect with my staff all around the country and build my dream team has been really exciting and incredibly motivating for me.
Awesome. That's so beautiful. Any advice? We need more men like your fiance, though.
We do. He is he's pretty incredible. So men, step it up.
we need more men to support the women in wanting to go after that change. Because as women, we naturally, like you said, feel we need to provide, whether it's providing to the household or providing a stable environment for those around us. There's always that uncomfortable, like, if I do this, the whole foundation is going to crumble. We have to stop having that on our shoulders.
Exactly. We can't do it all. We need, it's a partnership, right? So gone are the days of the man supporting and the woman staying at home, and then also gone are the days where, I think of not necessarily my family, but the days where, you have working professional women who are also the caretakers of the children and the home and all of that. Like, there needs to be better balance for everyone involved. And I'm very fortunate to say that that's my circumstance. And, I hope to see that change continue as we grow as a society and men become more aware and women become more aware and more able to speak up for themselves and to feel more comfortable in what they want and going for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could clap with happiness. So before we lead into the last two questions, any advice for those women sitting at home, hating their job like you did at Starbucks and wanting to make that change? What advice can you give them to go after that change?
I would say sit down, have a real good talk with yourself and look at what excites you. And, I think there's an opportunity to turn your passion into a living. No matter what you do, there is a way. And even when I think back to the days with Jen, where I was just spitballing ideas and I was like, there's no way this is going to work. And she would push back and say, well, why? Why not? And that to me was really powerful. So I would say, in short, when you find yourself doubting what it is that you really want to do and how you can make an impact and step away from what's really toxic and not serving you, and you play the game where you're like, I could never do that. Just ask yourself, why not? And play the game, play, why not? Well, because it's not it won't be profitable. Well, why not? Well, because I don't have the skills. Well, why not? Well, because I'm not someone who's ever grown a business. Well, okay, well, why not? And just keep playing that game until you come up with solutions. So if you're not someone who's done that, well, find someone who has and talk to them, but take them out for lunch and bend their ear. There's where there's a will, there's a way. And that's such an old statement, but it's so powerful and so true.
It is absolutely powerful and true. And you are so right to ask those questions. Mm-hmm. Ask them, because those are often the blockers that are preventing us from going forward.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times in my group program, I hear people say, I'm too old to change. Well, no, you're not. No. You're 50. You have a lot of life ahead of you. You're not too old. Or I don't have the skill set. How do you know you don't have the skill set if you haven't looked into that position?
And skills can be learned. That's the thing, right? And I think it's important to remember that, and also to play the what would you rather game. Like, would I rather be slinging coffee in a pandemic for, okay, compensation, but knowing that like I have to drag myself to work every day and put on a face that's not truly me? Or would I rather suck it up and, find a way to do what serves me better? And I mean, I recognize that I think I had an incredible opportunity because I didn't have to quit my job. Starbucks made the decision for me, which totally for me worked out in my benefit. But I would just encourage anyone who's having those feelings and feeling like something isn't quite right, doing a little bit of self-reflection and trying to understand and think of the things that excite you and, set you on fire and get you all pumped up. And that's what you should be spending your time doing.
And try and find those people to inspire you, which leads me to the next question. Who inspires you?
Oh my gosh. So many people, and not even people, things. I guess the one thing that really, really started this for me, and when I think of my why, I have to show you this. So my why sounds crazy. It's a dolphin. Okay. So I know we all love dolphins, very charismatic, beautiful animals, very relatable, as very intelligent animals in the ocean. But here's why that there's one in particular that inspires me that I will never, ever, ever forget. I was living in Vancouver at the time, working at Target, before it collapsed and crumbled. So one of the first things I did when I moved to Vancouver was I went to an aquarium because I'd never seen a dolphin, a whale, nothing, living on the East Coast, but still never seen one up close. First thing I did when I got there and walked out of there as a member, but the one thing that resonated with me so much was this dolphin named Helen. So she's a Pacific white-sided dolphin. I have a picture on my desk of her, of when I got to meet her. This was my going away present when I left.
Aww.
Because she was just what started it all for me. And why is she, if you notice, I'll show you this picture. She has, look at her fins. They've been amputated, right? So they've been partially amputated. And I remember listening to the program where they talked about why she was there. And why was she there? Because she was entangled in fishing nets. So because of us, we did that to her. She was fortunate enough to survive, with the partially amputated fins. And fortunately, it didn't impact her ability to swim fully. However, it did impact her ability to be released into the wild. So she did have a permanent home there. She's no longer there now. But to me, that was so powerful. And it was like a gut punch when I saw why she was there, as well as, at the aquarium at the time, and even now, the animals that are there, are non-releasable because of us. There's a sea lion there who was shot in the head and he's blind because of us. And while that's not plastic pollution related, my ethos is always very much centered around animal welfare. And that's the be all end all for me, and why I do everything that I do. So for her, that was pivotal, learning her and her story. So, everything that I do when it comes to plastic pollution, I think about how we can have an impact on the environments that we are polluting and how it's affecting them. And, the viral video of the sea turtle with the straw coming out of its nose, things like that. So those are my real inspirations. While it's not the most positive inspiration, it's my motivator to make a change, because, Helen got lucky in a way, because she was found and released. You think of all these animals on a regular who are dealing with our issues, our problems, and it's become very quickly their problems and much more pervasive than how it affects us. But on a lighter note, some other people who inspire me, again, my sister really does inspire me as well. I see how she's just this amazing woman who kills her job. She has an amazing family. She's an incredible mother. And while those aren't things that necessarily align with me as a person, I just admire the dedication that she has to what she does, and the way she presents herself and carries herself. So I would say she's, aside from the ocean and the animals in it, my human person who inspires me, I think would be her for sure.
So beautiful. And to our audio listeners, I will try and get that picture and put it into our show notes.
Yes.
So you can all see it. But yeah, just even talking about Helen, she's lucky. She's one, but how many were unlucky at the same time as she was lucky? I hate even thinking about that. It's been lovely to have you on the show. And I want others to follow you. So where can others find out more about your mission and more about you?
Yeah. So if you want to follow along, haven't been super active on Instagram lately, but I'm working on it. It's just Natasha_Tucker on Instagram. And then if you want to follow along with Plastic Oceans Canada, it's at Plastic Oceans Canada. So you can follow along there and learn more about what we're doing. And then also you can find us on LinkedIn. So both Natasha Tucker and Plastic Oceans Canada. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, it's been so great catching up. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Raise the Anchor, brought to you by Alizé Creative Solutions. We hope you found that story very inspiring. We look forward to bringing you more each week. Subscribe to the podcast to stay in the loop. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review to spread the love even further. We hope you have smooth sailing.